Good morning, church. It's good to be here with you again. Last week we looked at the subject of God being our refuge and how that David was a classic example of God being his refuge. Well, we looked at the refuge being, even though we may be oppressed, he is our refuge in times of trouble. But today, we're going to look at three things that helped David become what he was for God. David bounced back. That would be number one. He had determination. He had perseverance. David kept on getting up just one more time. For most of us, life is a series of small spurts forward by giant steps backwards. Sometimes it comes along that destroys us. A cruel blow to our ego. Maybe somebody says something that really hurts you. A bad day at work or even at school. An argument with a friend kind of sets us back and it kind of knocks us off track, doesn't it? Whatever it is, it pulls the rug right out from under us at times. We take 3 or 4 steps backwards before we get started again. David probably had more major setbacks than most of us will ever have, but he always bounced back. There's 3 different things I'd like to look at that happened in his life. Number 1, David lost his best friend early in life. That would be Jonathan. And you'll find that in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 1, 1 Samuel chapter 31, verses 1 and 2, and also in 2 Samuel 1, 11 and 12. But yeah, David's best friend was Jonathan. He loved him like a brother, and yet he lost him because he was taken in battle. Number 2, David lost a baby son later in life. We know the story of Bathsheba and the husband Uriah, who David had forcefully taken his life in battle. He had them put him up towards the front of the battle and back away from him, and he was killed. So because of that, God punished David, and he took the baby from him. And then the last thing, years later, Absalom led a rebellion against his dad, David, in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 19. And then also in chapter 18, verses 15 and verse 33. That was his son that came against him, trying to destroy him. David tragically lost his best friend. He lost an infant son, and he lost his favorite son as well. Yet David endured. He didn't lose faith in God. He could have said, I quit. I give up. I'm not doing this no more. We all have disappointments that tend to make us turn and run. What made David different is that he knew where to run to. He ran to God, his refuge. And again, I refer back to Psalms chapter 46. David penned the most famous of all the Psalms, Psalms 23. We know that, the story of that. We even know the Psalms 23. And David was dear to his heart as well as to God's heart. And so in verse 5, David was saying, in the heat of the battle, when I'm surrounded by enemies and hassles, I run to you, Lord, and you set a table before me right there so that I can have a lunch break. In other words, God was saying to David, take a moment, have a rest, relax in the heat of the battle. And then also, excuse me, in Psalms chapter 23, that whole chapter, you can see how God is so precious to David. David ran to God, who set him down. He set a table before him. He gave him a meal and had a chance to relax in order that he might get his act together again. That's what God can do for us. He can take us in the midst of a storm and calm things around us. He can set us down. He can even feed us. And then also he can give us a chance to relax in order that we might get our act together again. It's hard to do sometimes on our own, but if we turn to God, he can do that for us. He can give us the time that we need in order for that to take place in our life. Remember, don't forget God. It is he who saves us. It is He who sustains us, and it is He who blesses us. So don't forget what He's done for you. God bless you, church. Have a great week. God bless.